Another Sunday. We are back. We got to talk about a few things like the Crimson Combine and such here on the Sooner or Later Sports Show. That's your boy Coop. I'm Jay. Thanks for pulling up here on the YouTube channel and listening wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. While you're here, please wipe your feet, like, subscribe, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Go ahead and give us 5 anyway and gift it. So on today's episode of the Sooner or Later Sports Show, we've got a lot of fun stuff to dive into, like the Crimson Combine. And we've got to talk about what's going to happen in the portal. We've got to talk about some great news that came out of the press conferences. So a lot jam-packed show. Coop, happy Sunday, my boy. How are you doing today?
Jay, I am doing well. Unfortunately, I was unable to make it, but I get to do a shout out that is very, very important to me because of it. My grandfather turned 93 this week. Awesome. And so obviously very, very important to me to be around for those final birthdays and, my kids getting a chance to be there and being around them, just great. And so it was the 10th anniversary of the last time that my mom hosted at her place. And so my mom's a little on the struggle bus sometimes, but we went over to her house and she got to host the family for the birthday party, and it was terrific. So unfortunately, I was not. I'm more missing all those photo ops that I saw with the Powers family and Boganowski and the Hardys and you. And our boy Kendall Dolby, and those are the things that I missed, but definitely had an opportunity to be with loved ones here this weekend.
Yeah, that's good. I'm actually glad that you got to take time and enjoy that with family, because like you said, these are those times where you need to enjoy those. So just time, life is short. The tragedy with
Definitely.
Kyron Lacey with LSU, and then there's just so many things that life is short, so you want to make sure that you cherish it. But thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button if you're new to the channel. Subscribe. I want to give a special shout out to some of the guys this weekend. I don't know if y'all saw Deion Burks and a few other players got baptized today.
Devon Mitchell.
I was actually talking to Reggie. Yep, I was talking to you. Say Devon Mitchell was on there up there too.
He was one of them too. Yeah.
Nah, that is awesome. I am glad to hear. I was talking to Reggie Powers Jr. The pops of RP3. Yeah. We were chopping it up at the combine or whatnot. Actually, we were on the same plane coming back to Oklahoma City because I was flying in from work and he was flying in for the combine and see the kiddo. And he was telling me that that some of the players were going to get baptized. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, I'm leaving out Monday because of it. And so I was like, okay. And so you get to see like Deion Burks and a few of the other ones actually got themselves baptized. So I wanted to give a special shout out to the kiddos on that. Good to see them, doing things that, make everybody proud. But that's one of the major big ones. But we had the combine over the weekend. And of course, the questions have been asked. How do we actually feel about said combine? Coop, did you even get a chance to take a gander at it?
I just saw a lot of the clips on the socials. Didn't get a chance to go back and watch. And but I have heard people's assessments of what was going on. Thank God Cale Gundy's out there to slander the university whenever he gets an opportunity to. He posted from 50,000 to 5,000 what's going on with college football, and again you pivot and everything's going on. Let's go macro, Jay. Like, you look across college football right now and you see some of the things that are going on, and which we will talk about. And to say that like you pivoted away from more of a scrimmage to more of a family environment, just for everybody just to come out and at least have something to do if they were planning. It just doesn't look like the people made the trip. That usually happens right around this time of the year. So you got to kind of get back to the drawing board and see what you can do, because this is a big piece of the, I guess, in between the end of the season and fall camp. And so I think that's where people want to see something that resembles football, because as cool as the UFL or XFL or GFL or Pi FL, whatever it's called now, that the lower forms of football, they just don't satiate the palate like a spring game does. But again, I saw some really cool things. You got a chance to see some highlights for stuff. So if there wasn't a lot of people there, at least you got a chance to see the service that's going on with the kids, hanging out with some of the fans. There was a lot of actual football-esque, stuff going on, and that's what we came here for, was for a little bit of spring football.
Yeah, that's kind of the point of being at an event like this. So I was there in the stands enjoying it, and this is some of the 7-on-7 stuff. I talked about it earlier on my morning after this morning when I talked how I felt about the combine, and kind of to give y'all the Cliff's notes on what I felt is this. It left a lot to be desired. And the biggest problem is that it was not built for a streaming format. Like it's not, we weren't prepared for it as a streaming format. So like, for example, the A-Day one, like they had an A-Day spring game last year, and this year Alabama did a practice similar to what Oklahoma did. And their attendance was like a third. Actually, it was like a 10th. Like full for spring game, it was small for practice, similar to us. We probably saw maybe a 10% of fans there this year, so it was a 10th of what normally would be. And for me, like I said, it left a lot to desire. In person, it was not bad. Like this was fun watching these 7-on-7s. Like seeing this.
Yeah.
This was a good time. I actually enjoyed that. You could see some of the wide receivers make moves. You could see some of the you saw some of the the offensive and defensive line do a little bit of going back and forth, but you really got to see the corners and the DBs go against each other. You saw the running backs cut through holes. You got to see some passes like this one here from Mateer. You saw Mateer tuck and run. The big problem is that in a television production, you can't use the infield audio as your feed, because they're talking about stuff that has nothing to do with what you're showing on the screen. To me, you need to take more of a NFL Red Zone Scott Hansen approach and have Toby Rowland do it, where you jump from this position group and you watch some of it and you focus on the key players, like the ones that people are ready to see, like some of the young players. Typically, it's the young players are the ones that are going to be starters next year for the first time. And then you want to see the vet. You jump around to that. You jump from like the lineman battle to the drills with the quarterbacks throwing a particular wide receivers. Oh, this is one of his new targets, blah, blah, blah. So there was so many components that could have been great that you can obviously see that it was put together last minute. And I hate to throw the shade at them in that I still enjoyed myself in person, because the thing that made it great was, for those that did pull up, was that you got to see all the autographs. John Mateer was literally doing autographs from the start, and he was like the last dude to leave. I left slightly early, but as the lines were dwindling, you could see John Mateer going all the way around from the top portion of here. You saw him going all the way from the opposite side view that I'm showing now, all the way around to the actual other side of the field. It was looped around with fans getting autographs. It was actually quite amazing to see how that he was willing to stay and do that. But yeah, he took like an hour extra doing signatures. It was pretty cool. That to me is leadership.
Yeah, and hey, listen, I've got one of my family members who is a big OU fan. He got a selfie with John Mateer. Trey, if you're watching, I saw yours. There were a lot of things. I saw a lot of selfies with John Mateer and a lot of selfies with players, and that's where you were going to have to make up for the lack of the game, because let's be honest. Last year, we spent a lot of the game under the stadium talking with parents. So there was a lot of that last year, and then once you get almost an hour into it, it kind of turns into a situation where you've got names that may never see the field out there doing their thing, and so you can kind of get out and do some other stuff. But again, you've got across the college football, you've got every single major program doing pretty much the same thing, and they still good opportunity to bring some recruits in, spend some time with them, give them a chance to kind of see what the production on a game week is, and to have a game type of a scenario where you have more open opportunity to have a conversation with the fan base, and to really show some things differently. So next year you're just going to have to find out what's going to happen early. Are you going to do a spring game or no? And if you're not, let's put some thought process into this now, because if you try to just kind of last second it like you did this year, it might be the last year that it happens, because I don't know how many people are going to be willing to come back in for that, unless they just saw the volume of autograph opportunities and make it happen. I know our boy PG would love to have a little Danny Stutzman autograph. And so, if you bring back, past players and, that can happen, then maybe that's something big. But I think it's a new opportunity. I know I saw, some of the older heads out there. Rocky Kalmus was out there hanging out, watching his son do some stuff. And so you got to think that there are some opportunities there, and it's going to, you got to kind of just make the best of a situation.
Shout out to Onikuno. Thank you for that, Sean. Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. It was one of those, they basically said, nah, you got to do something, bro. We can't, we started selling for an event, and I understand that you're fearful of injuries or whatever, but we've already sold this event, so we can't not do it. We got to give the people something. You got to give the people something, and that's kind of the situation you run into is. And I agree with you here, Sports. You make a good point. Spring games are always, they're kind of pointless. I agree, because no matter what, you can show in a spring game in practice what you want, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be, the real. That is where you run into your biggest problem is that you can make it seem like anything. And that's also where the biggest problem came into this is that here's some of more of the 7-on-7 stuff. Watching Mateer just launch it to wide receivers, good time, but it's not. Last year was not a good representation of what the offense was. For example, I had a conversation with Samuel Mosigo. I talked to Reggie Powers. I saw, actually, we're talking about legends. I actually ran into Paul Thompson. Me and him chopped it up for a bit. Or what. Now I'm going to see about getting him back on in the future. One of my favorite people. The stories he gave on the A&M game on here were awesome. Go back and check out that video from a while ago. That was a great time. We were just laughing at them dudes. Blowing out A&M was always a fun deal. But because it wasn't a representation of the team of what it was last year, the excitement behind a spring game really isn't there as much to me.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I'd say showing the fans what a practice looked like is still pretty cool to me, because most fans don't get to see this.
Most have no clue.
And that's a cool component, because if you look at it, you're getting to see some, obviously, we got to see some big. Ivan Carrion is out there. He just made the catch. We're getting to see big healthy. You get to see that all your wide receivers are actually healthy besides your two Gibsons, which is unfortunate. But we'll talk about the news on him in a bit, because I think that's some huge stuff to talk about. But the biggest component here is we got to see some stuff we never got to see before. You get to see some players move around that you've been hoping to see. So you got some confirmation. Like, I know that everybody feels like the coaching staff is feeding us BS on certain things. So you go out there and you see Salchuk running the ball. You see Ivan Carrion making a catch. You see certain DBs out there. You're like, oh, so we are good. They are going to play. They are healthy. That feels good. A lot better than most people think, Coop.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and again, it's would you rather have nothing at all and just practice and more kind of just, fed information coming out of the practice field, or would you rather have an opportunity to where people get a chance to see with their own eyes what some of these things look like? And,
yep.
Again, you're running 7-on-7, so you're not showing a lot of anything outside of just, one-on-one efforts, between defense backs and the wide receivers. You get live throws from the quarterback, but he doesn't have anybody in his face. He doesn't have anybody focused on him. And so this is, it is something. You could have nothing. We could be talking about another, press conference coming up on Monday or Tuesday, and that would be it. But there's a lot. I know that we saw some Taylor Tatum stuff up out there. You saw Kendall Cody out there running some stuff. There were some questions that a lot of people have, been asking that showed up, through this. So you did get something.
No, yeah, you got a little bit of what you hope to see in parts next year. So there were no injuries, knock on wood, that we saw. Fans got to just enjoy some football. If anything, Topher, this is a darn good idea. Maybe in the future. I do like this idea of a concert afterwards. But the biggest piece that probably made it good for fans to show up for was the fact that players were giving autographs willingly. They were really excited about it. You saw, as fans were screaming their name, there was a lot of kids that was out there screaming names, and the players would turn, smile, walk over, sign, take a selfie. There was a lot of that.
That's good.
And that was really good. Even Jane Jackson was like, thanked somebody for thanking him for giving him a picture. And he said, I can't believe I'm in this position. So you got to enjoy those ports. And I think that those are kind of more memorable. Those are the things that to me kind of are more important. That's what you wanted to get out of all of this, is that part. So I was happy for that. But yeah, that's really, honestly, that was about it. That's basically what you got out of it. If they do this again, the way they need to fix this is, one, you need to actually publicize this better and talk about what you're going to do. Yeah. Two, the television product needs to be closer to something, like I said, Red Zone, where it jumps around from position group workouts, so when you can talk about it like they do before the game. When they talk about this is such and such, you see them catching passes and stuff. You can talk about that and have conversation there, move to the next one, talk through the next part, move to this one, talk to the next part. And then the big kicker is they need to expand the 7-on-7 to longer than like 30 minutes. That should be like 2 hours of 7-on-7, moving up and down the field. To me, everyone would like that. That's the big one. But now I tell you, man, Susie's not only a huge, he's a monster of a human. Nicest kid I ever met. Met him as well. Went to the field with RP2 and met him, met a few others. Like, yeah, that's pretty dope. So, yeah. That's kind of my thoughts on the combine. I watched the TV product. Yeah. Go back and watch it if you want, just to laugh at it. But I mean, it's much better to watch with the sound off. I'm just going to be honest. And it's nothing against our announcers or talkers. It's just nothing had anything to do with anything. It was just all over the place. And it had nothing. It was not their fault. You could tell that this was thrown together quickly. But at least the recruits that got to be there got to hang out, see some ball. And it was also not good for any other program around the country. Like, this is how spring games went. Yeah. But possibly we may get where they do a spring scrimmage with somebody next year. Colorado and Syracuse threw it out there. And it sounds like next year may be something to be considered. Keep your eyes on that one. So, let me know what you think. Hop in the comments. We want to hear your thoughts. Coop, we got to talk about this Nico Yamaleava stuff. We're going to talk, which we'll end with the Nico talk, but we're going to jump into talking about the press conference and the conversations that not only Ben Arbuckle and Brent Venables had, transfer portal components or whatnot. But I want to shout out our guys over there at Bagman Water. Shot me a case of these bad boys. I want to shout them out. We're going to start working with them coming this season, mainly because they're putting together water full of electrolytes, purified, and it's all NIL driven, baby. This stuff goes to the NIL. So we're going to support them one bottle at a time, going to NIL. Check out Bagman Beverages. Follow them on the Bird app. We're going to show up some love. And like I said, we're going to work with them this year. Coop, real quick. Michael Patterson McDonald's hits the portal. So we got our second portal entry, him, Devon Mitchell, which is still some shock. Devon Mitchell was baptized with everybody else today. That is crazy. Yeah. It's crazy news, man. Maybe he's working his way to trying to come back. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, Michael hit the portal. And it sounds like because he was dealing with some initial injuries, he's just started to fall down that depth chart. And when you look at the depth chart, I'm gonna pull up the roster for y'all in a second. He just did not get lucky enough to be able to stick around. What you think?
Well, you know, we caught up with his dad. I think it was right before the opener, the home opener here this year, when we were leaving Campus Corner and walking over. And you know, he did deal with some injuries. We're getting more and more closer to these situations to where it is 100% just a business. And you know, when college football was created, Jay, it was, you know, about university pride, right? It was, we've got a group of people who also play a sport here, you know, let's get together and you know, go play these people. Obviously college football has, you know, became a massive enterprise now. And so you're going to find, and we've been bringing this up for 2 years, you know, just with the number of people that you're going to see leaving. Nobody wants to. I don't think anybody really wants to like join the team, you know, for a year or two and then find out that like they just don't have a spot. So I got to say this is, you know, whoever we see leave, I mean, these guys chose Oklahoma at one point for, you know, one reason or the other, and we've put, you know, emotions behind them. But, you know, again, this is, you know, year 3 or year 2. You're not really seeing any playing time. He's got a group of people out in front of him, which happened just to be kind of the strength of the team. You know, you've got the defensive line, you've got the safety room / cheetah / linebacker. We know that Michael was doing a lot of special teams when he was healthy, but you know, people are going to go, and so you know, to the family, you know, we love you guys. We want nothing but the best for you. You know, never lose contact because, you know, you're part of our family now too, but you're just going to see more and more of this. And sometimes the names are really going to sting. And sometimes it's just going to, you know, kind of drive like this one does, where it's just like, man, I just hate that for the kid. Cause you know, he was one that I wanted to see, you know, an Oklahoma boy who decided to, you know, he was part of that group, with that Carl Albert group. And, you know, there's a ton of talent coming out of that area.
Yeah, I agree.
Not everybody's going to end up being here. So give him the best. We wish him the best. You know, Devon Mitchell, same thing. You know, it's just the business aspect of it is going to always be looming. And you got to have people who are, you know, capable to do something.
Yeah, when it comes to the safety room here, that's kind of what you get to. Like, so with Jaden Hardy, you know, Man, Peyton Bowen, Robert Spears Jennings, Marcus Wimberly, Michael Boganowski, Reggie Powers, who plays both. Heck, Taylor Heim can also shift into the safety role, and then so can Kendall Daniels. You had a long list. I mean, you're 3 deep, is pretty deep already, and that to me is probably what hurt Michael dealing with injuries. If you with those injuries, man, it kind of it throws you down. But that's unfortunate for our guy Michael. Hopefully, he'll probably find a good landing spot. He'll probably play. I bet you he'll get into him nice either G5 or P4 and get him some opportunities. Kind of like Dave McCullough. That was kind of like why you lost Dave McCullough a couple years ago. Even with his size and stature, the room was just that deep.
Yeah.
And but being able to see, like Coach Powers kind of mentions here, being able to see some of these players and see their true sizes. Yeah, because Reggie Powers is not 5'11", dog. He's 6'1". He's 6'1", and he told me he's 210. Jesus.
And that's probably like where he was after the after he got up, stretched, had his breakfast, had his morning evacuation and everything at 210. Like dude just continues to become more and more of a physical presence. And listen, there's no lie into what I'm about to say. We love the opportunity to chop it up with Boganowski and Powers and the parents and stuff like that. And so to see the kids, take that step, because it's hard, Jay. You develop relationships, and then you see a guy like Michael, who is going to move on. You see a guy like Vaughn Mitchell who's going to move on. Some of these recruits who, we do interviews with, and, they're in and then they're out. It's just, it's tough. It's because we have the investment, because we do care about these people just as people first and foremost, and then we get excited about them as football players too. So, getting a chance to that safety room is just a little bit of a freak situation, and to be here now where we were versus 2018 is just so much better, because in 2018, I mean, we're just looking for somebody to stop the bleeding at safety. And now you've got a bunch of guys who are probably going to go start at other team because the room's just loaded.
Having a full room just warms my heart. Because we talked about DBs that we were wondering who was going to be the one to step up in the corner spot. Luckily, we have two vets, in theory, Eli and Gentry. Mm-hmm. Jacoby's still coming around, but you got a lot of young players with Jordan and Newcomb that you're waiting to see who jumps up, and then 3 true freshmen. But you got to see all of them in the at the combine, which helps. You get to see all of them actually give you something. So, yeah, don't like to see that Michael bounced out, but again, we understand why, because he wanted an opportunity to play, and he's going to get an opportunity to play somewhere. So, shout out to him. Gonna miss him. But I think the room is going to be still good. Like I said, we got a lot of players. We still got a couple players still need to come in as high schoolers, which I always forget about. You still got CJ Nixon, as well as Marcus James that'll be coming at linebacker and edge. So maybe we'll grab one more out of the portal. Somebody young, maybe. But most likely we're going to use that spot for a linebacker, because we need a young linebacker. We need, we're probably going to need to pick up one more defensive lineman just to have an extra body. And probably one more corner. So you probably need 3 defenders out of the portal to make sure that you've got a full roster going forward. So
it sounds like really the only thing that you saw, which was an absolute need this weekend, was a kicker. That is going to continue to be a looming situation. You've got 2 guys who can do it, but neither of them are really taking the reins. And I know our boy George Stoya over here at Sooner Scoop, he was posting out some stuff about the kicker stuff. That's a big deal, because I don't want to watch this team bust their backside all year long and then to be put in a situation where you've got nothing at kicker, and that's where you lose a game. Whether it's missing a game, missing a field goal at some point throughout the game, extra points, game winning or game tying field goal at the end of the game. So it looks like we need a kicker. But you want to, I guess, what would be the word to really be? You want to really just add extra clout, in some of these areas. It's not like you're looking for anywhere to where you're, outside of maybe tight end. It's not like you're looking for someone who is actually going to come in and, threaten to start. You want bodies for rotation. And Jay, it's been a minute. Competitive depth. But you're going to need that because, again, still SEC. With the situation that we've dealt with on the injury front, I don't think that you have any position that you want to go into the season with just the right amount of bodies and you're clinging on to your pearls going, as long as nobody gets hurt, we're fine. You don't want to find yourself in that scenario. You want to find yourself in a spot to where you've got the, the appropriate amount of depth on each position to get you through the year.
Yeah, that's true. Adding some additional pieces to help could really help with that, like you said, long term or whatnot. So, yeah, you gotta have that competitive depth, which is critical if you want to see success in the SEC. And we've got them. We've got the competitive depth that we've been looking for.
Two of them. You sorry son of a gun. But you know what? Billy says exactly what we all need to trust in. Jim Nagy is right on it right now. I promise you, the moment that we realize that there's a need, somebody else is already on it, and that's Nagy's staff. He was on the Oklahoma Breakdown at the end of the week and, had a lot to say. And it sounds like it's just, hey, this is a need. We have finances to go fill this need, and we will go do it. And the amount of film that, him and his staff are looking at, by the time we realize that there's a need, these guys are working. And I don't want to get too deep into this, Jay, but it sounds like we're doing the things that we need to do in order to fill these positions too. Whether it is called tampering, whether it's called, just putting out the feelers, whatever it is, these guys are, they're looking after it, and they're finding out, who's out there, who's willing. You still have a lot of people across the entire country, and a lot of these players on these teams like Stanford and Cal and stuff like that, when those guys are just looking for, football is a passion of theirs, and they want to play, and they want to play at the highest level, and all their dreams and thoughts and preparations, all kind of got taken away from them, with all the realignment. And so you continue to see guys jumping in the portal, and what is it? We're still technically 3 days away from the portal opening, so we'll see more of this stuff, coming down this week. So keep your eyes peeled on that one, because by the time we probably come on here again, we'll probably have, a good collection of names to kind of speak to.
Yeah. So keep your eyes open on that. Thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button if you're new to the channel. Subscribe, rate, review. Give us 5. Next up, Coop, let's talk about some of the stuff that came out of the presser. Have you got a chance to look at any of the pressers or hear BV and Buckle and all of them talk? Great. So, yeah, the number one thing that y'all should be excited about, and I talked about this in the video, for my morning after video this morning, Giovanni Gibson was mentioned about by Brent Venables. He talked about him during the presser. He talked about him during while he's on the field, doing the interviews with Teddy and them. And what we heard is BV believes if he stays on schedule, he's back week 1. That is a lot more shocking than I expected. I thought he's probably gone for the year. But BV says that he had an injury similar to Kendall Doby's, but it was not as severe as Kendall Doby's. And that's because they'd done surgery. They did surgery, I think, Monday or Tuesday. After surgery, they realized his injury was not as serious as KD's. And there's a chance that he'll be back, which is 4 months, technically. Yeah. Now, for context, KD got hurt end of September, and they said that he was ready to go a month ago, which is technically 6 months. I have video of Kendall Dobie going through drills, looking good. I went and talked to him on the field. He looks good. Like, no, he just taped as usual, doing all the movements that you are said should be. And that is the good thing. He is doing everything needed. So that is a plus. So there's a good chance we have Giovanni back. I haven't seen any recent updates on Jaden Gibson, but his timetable is still August. Yeah. So we probably won't get another update on Jaden until probably this summer. I say July. Mainly because he felt something. I think you said this, Coop. He's made a step, felt something weird, and they basically said, "You're done."
It's when you're doing recovery, there's levels, and a lot of it is not so much, hey, can you go out there and run? It's, hey, can you go out there and run, and then let's monitor what happens after it. So if you guys have ever had a torn ACL, if you've ever broken an ankle, if you've ever, torn a meniscus, anything like that, it's not so much the ability to get out and walk appropriately. It's because that some of these, the ligaments, especially when you're breaking your fibula, those bones are completely surrounded by muscle, ligament, etc. And so,
especially as low as he got hurt, right?
Yeah. And so when you have one of those situations, a lot of the time you won't actually know the intensity of it until you get in and the doctors are in there and looking at everything. And listen, I didn't even stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I'm not even going to pretend to be a surgeon. But I have also, had cleanups gone in where people went in and took a look at, my knee and gone, okay, well, the meniscus is gone. There's nothing else there. The structural portion of it is fine. You can walk. You could probably run. If you ever want to be, competing at the highest level, this is what we want to do. Well, obviously, these guys are competing at the highest level. So, yeah, just the news that it could be potentially week one. There's a lot of reports out there, and there's going to continue to be reports out there. And if you're a person who says, "Hey, listen, let's maybe just press the brakes, wait a little bit, and find out where we are, closer to the season," hey, listen, that's a pretty safe mindset to be in. And so I think that's going to be it. Is you're going to have Giovanni Gibson is probably going to be out there running around at the beginning of fall camp and testing and seeing where that is. What does it look like when you go out and run around and do a live rehab? What does it feel like the next day? What does it feel like the next time you go out and run again? And so when you have a Giovanni Gibson situation, a Jaden Gibson situation, he's out running around and he makes a cut and he says, well, I kind of feel something funny right there. And then they're going to come in and they're going to watch, what does your body do? And so you never know. And so I would love to say, Jay, I would love to say that, like, hey, based off of just the medical calendar, we're going to have this guy back by here. But each person's body is different. Each person's, composition of how they've, got everything else around it. And a lot of the times it is what is, does your body have a really, really good, have you taken care of your body? Have you strengthened a lot of the areas around those? Because if your body's pretty strong, your body will be a little bit more resilient. Whereas if you get hurt, let's go with your boy Coop here. If I go out on Tuesday night and I'm playing basketball, pickleball, and I start running around and I pop my Achilles, my rehab is going to be completely different from anybody that would be on this team. It's going to be a lot longer. It's going to be a lot slower because my body's just waiting until death right now.
Hey,
not to drag it down.
Yeah, you're old. That's all it is. We understand that. Don't worry, Bill. We're trying to get Jim on. We're trying to get Jim Nagy on one day. That would be amazing. We've asked, so we'll see what happens down the line. But the good thing is that Deion Burks appears to be going. He's out there catching passes during the combine, so that tells me that I think he is at the level of good that matters. He was catching touchdowns as they was moved up and down the field. So
Yeah.
that was, of course, exciting. Can't beat that. So you had some Burks action on that. This opens up the door for Elijah Thomas and Manny Choice to really move up the chart to start. Keontae Lewis didn't compete. Keontae Lewis didn't compete. You saw some Satania. You know, him in the slot's going to be ridiculous. Josiah Martin was out there, which was good. That was good. Which is a plus. So, I mean, looking overall in the room, you're about as good as you can hope for. So, let me know what y'all think. Hop in the comments, please. Thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button. New to the channel, subscribe. Wipe your feet. Rate us, review us. Give us the 5 stars. And Coop, let me see. We had some very interesting news over the weekend. Let's talk about what's going on in college football. Nico Iamaleava has decided that the transfer portal is the place to be. So the report came out, Thursday, that by Pete Nako, shout out to him.
No, he was just BS. He was just BSing.
Fair point.
He obviously had no idea.
No clue. But Nakos did say that Nico and them was asking for a renegotiation on his NIL. Mm-hmm. And after Tennessee, it sounds like was like, nah, we good. He didn't show up to practice. This was the funny thing, is that the whole family, handlers, family members, all of them were saying, nah, this ain't true. This wasn't happening. We not doing that. Pete Nakos is lying. Called him the B. They called him all. They did all kinds of stuff. Said all kinds of crazy stuff about the man's name.
There was a lot.
They called him everything but a son of God. Then, after that, Coop, he didn't show up to practice. And then right after that, it was found that he had informed Joey Halsey, the quarterback coach, that he had filed his paperwork to enter the transfer portal. So the question we ask here is, why they lie about it? I understand that they may not have wanted this information to get out, but why lie? No reason to. Pete Nakos and a few others have written some articles out. And this is something I told you all before. Let me go ahead and give you guys the lecture I gave you last time. I understand that y'all don't like how college football is going now in the NIL era and transfer portal. Totally understand. The biggest blame here is that the NCAA felt the need to do absolutely nothing. And all the grown-ups in the room decided to create these little rules that just didn't make any sense because they didn't want to actually make a decision. More so, if they made a decision, they knew it was going to be sued. They're going to get sued for it, and then we'd have to go through this litigation anyway. Well, the House settlement's about to come down. And it sounds like the House settlement's going to have a few adjustments to it that we weren't prepared for. Like the roster limits are going to be increased initially, and it's going to tear down over the next few years to make it easier for the coaching staff to not have to cut a whole bunch of people within 3 months like we had to do. So we may actually add more players than we release because we'll have more roster spots. So that's a pin for another day. But because the settlement will be coming down in the next few weeks, everybody, this is the last summer that all this crazy ish like this is going to happen. Contracts will be negotiated different. There'll probably be options for certain players to get 2-year deals. But you got to remember, it's a twofold thing when it comes to contracts. You don't want to give player contracts and then be upset that said player is still on your roster because you can't get rid of them because they're still under contract. It's a two-way street. A lot of coaches like the idea of 1 year because then they can get rid of players that they don't want to play anymore. If you think a player sucks, they can get rid of them. It's kind of my point. Something to keep in mind. You want to have both. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So this is the last summer all this crazy ish is going to happen. So don't think that this is what it's going to look like next summer. Once that House settlement comes in, revenue share is in place, and there's actually going to be rules and regulations, It's done. And this is honestly why I think the Nico situation went down. Slash should have grabbed the last of that bag. Am I mad at Nico and them doing it? Absolutely not. It's your priority. It's your prerogative. You can do whatever you want to do. And I am just happy that Josh Heupel said, nah, we good. Because remember, Josh Heupel was the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma when they kicked Rhett Bomar off the team.
Yeah.
Nobody's larger than the logo. And he even said it, nobody's larger than the team. He said it.
Yep.
So shout out to Josh Heupel for putting his foot down and saying we ain't dealing with this ish. And he basically did it for college football. Now, if a team is stupid enough to pay the man the money, they'll just do it. And hey, shout out to Nico for getting his bread. I have no issue with it. For me, it's why would you want a player like that on your team anyway? And this is why I say to you all in the chat, and this is why I'm giving this long-winded lecture on it. Why would you want a player like that on your roster? These are the type of players you want to catch. And these are the type of players you want off your team. You want to be able to find them, sniff them out, and let them go. This is a win for college football. He can ask for money, cool, but you don't want him on your team. Great. You now know he's not who you want. It's hard. Everybody will put up a facade up front. They put up that face to get in the door. The question is who they are after they're in the door. And having the opportunity to move dudes around that don't belong in your locker room, that aren't out there to perform, that aren't working their butt off, that don't show up to signings. If Mateer didn't show up to the Crimson Combine, I would have gladly said, hey, man, I'd finally get rid of that dude. Because it's just not a good look.
You just saw it with Devon Mitchell. Hey, buddy, we are paying you X. The production at this point has been not what what you agreed on. But yeah, I'll let you finish because there's tiers to my response.
Exactly. And so to ask the question that Ben is asking here, what is going to change is the revenue sharing is going to have an actual structure to it. This is your cap money. This is the amount that you can spend. And when that happens, everybody's going to have a structure of how much they're willing to pay somebody. If there's anything that Nico just recently did, he just hurt any high school quarterback coming into this class. Because teams are not going to look at paying anybody that much money in high school when they can go get somebody out of the portal who actually has experience. I know a lot of you have mentioned Lincoln's not going to get Nico. He's not going to go to USC. I promise you that's not a situation that they're going to take into account. It'll be too much of a pain for them to try to integrate him into the Big Ten, and we've already seen what Ohio State did to him. Don't think you want to have that happen to you a second time around. But the big thing I'm looking at is locations for him. Coop, if you want me to be honest, I think the perfect school that's probably going to end up being in there for him, North Carolina. Oh. I think it's going to be a Tar Heel. That makes the most sense. Who they got at quarterback that y'all know about?
I don't know, but they got Bill Belichick, and that guy is 100% business. Fun fact.
I'm sorry, who? Who?
Bill Belichick.
Have you seen Bill Belichick's Instagram? That man is enjoying life. He's past that business crap. That's the reason why I picked him. I think Bill Belichick's out there having a good time. He's here for a good time, not a long time. Because he old.
I got a fun story. I can't really tell, but I asked someone a Bill Belichick question, and he was standing right next to them.
Which is even more hilarious.
Department, which is fun. But here's what I say, Jay: is
Max Johnson.
You've got you have the world that we're living in, to where everything is continually in flux, and this is 100% because the NCAA did not step up. They basically went into preservation mode and just continuing being I would almost say it's in a in my role for my big boy job is I am a channel director. So I've got the title of director, but I've got none of the day-to-days of keeping people, performance reviews, stuff like that. I get to tell them what to do, but I don't have to tell them to sayonara. I don't have to hire them. And I think that's kind of what you got right now with the Belichick situation is this guy he just wants to see what he can do. He was offered a lot of money. It was something that he was willing to, go give a shot at. But this whole scenario right now is because the NCAA's inability to find where they actually have a fit and where they can actually do something. Nico doing what he's doing, he took his shot, and on you say that, go get your bread. Sure. The value is created by two parties. And if you think you are a certain amount of value and someone else thinks that you're the same amount of value, you have an agreement. You don't need 5 or 6 other parties to be accomplices in this situation. But at the same time, I got to say this is Nico didn't warrant more money. His year last year was good, but there were a lot of times to where it wasn't good. And so when you're going out to go after more money, I just say this is you saw something. I've heard some of the stuff of what Tennessee was actually having him do, the massive amount of PR stuff that he was allegedly going to do. But when you come out and I don't know, you call an industry expert names and you resort to that. It went from business and professional to there's something here. And the moment you saw those things go, you knew something was up because On3 just does what On3 does during this offseason. They put out content to engage people. If you're going to put out there, I think I saw someone, the Arch Manning versus John Mateer, who's going to, there was something going out there. It's about engagement at this point.
Right.
And so, when Nakos comes out and says it, and immediately you saw the excessive backlog, you thought, okay, there might be something here. But this is what every single fan base has been in this situation for probably the past 2 years was, what if this is a quarterback? What if a quarterback does this? Not a defensive tackle, not a Bear Alexander situation, but what if a quarterback does this? What if a quarterback on a big team does this? Because you had, who was it, the UNLV quarterback who, did his shenanigans right at the end of the year, right at the beginning of the year. Every single silly situation gets you closer to the next silly situation because that paradigm shift has been shattered, it's been moved, and you see, the next step of crazy is in the distance, in the horizon. This is not good for Tennessee. Now, shout out to Josh Heupel because, like you said, I never even thought about the Rhett Bomar stuff. That is a big deal. Josh got to see a couple of situations. The Bomar situation, he got to see how Bob Stoops handled the Joe Mixon situation. And there were a lot of situations that he, saw pretty closely and probably monitored. And to basically do this, what you're trying to do is you're trying not to have the quarterback completely handcuffed your organization. And going into the summer, that wasn't one that was going to, you weren't going to have negotiations. It wasn't a situation to where you're not showing up for training camp. It was a deal to where the guy wants more money, and you probably have people, ours is the Jim Nagy crew, who are looking out and saying, I mean, if the guy was coming back and asking us for, $500,000 more, like that might be a conversation, but to, almost double this up, it's not good. So where it's bad for Tennessee, I think this needed to happen. I hate that it was Tennessee that had to go through it, and I hate that it was Nico. But silver lining here, folks, now we have 7 new starting quarterbacks that we are going to be facing this year. So that is, we are facing more new starters than we are incumbent starters. And it sounds like they don't even know who the hell the starter is down in Auburn yet. So you're going to have a good amount of stuff. And I would rather go play some random other dude in Tennessee than Nico. That's just where I lie.
Well, that's a plus. We're gonna see. That's the implications for Oklahoma. We now add them. So let's go down the list. Illinois State, Michigan has a new quarterback, and I'm thinking it sounds like Underwood's gonna win that job.
Mm-hmm.
Temple's gonna have a new QB.
And I don't count.
Auburn.
And I do not count any outside of Michigan. I did not count Illinois State or any of the non-con. So I'm talking about legitimate teams.
Yeah, all SEC squad. So let's go SEC. Well, SEC and then Big Ten, because I think Michigan should count, like you said. Michigan, Auburn, Texas, which Texas, for them, they're incumbent. Their starting quarterback has been on the team for 2 years, so we'll keep that in mind. So that gives them a little leeway there. Then you got Ole Miss. Simmons was there for a year, so Simmons technically is kind of similar to Arch. They both played about a game, but they're there. After that, you've got, USC, or South Carolina has theirs. Missouri, Alabama, and Tennessee.
And then, so the only returning guys that we're going to see are Lenore Sellers at South Carolina.
Yep.
And then you've got
Garrett Nussmeier.
Nussmeier at LSU.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So technically 7 new starters and 5 new guys that we have never seen before. The 5 new guys to their rosters, most likely. Yeah. So I'll take it.
So
that's pretty good.
We keep on talking about the hellacious schedule. And by name, and it is what it is. Texas is replacing a hell of a lot of stuff. So are other teams. Ole Miss is replacing a hell of a lot of stuff. So it's good. Now, where does this go from here? I don't think that the revenue sharing is going to take all these shenanigans away, Jay. I think that the revenue sharing is going to minimize the shenanigans, but there's always going to be somebody out there.
Yeah. We're talking about humans here. Yeah, there's going to be some BS that's going to happen. So I agree. The other thing too, and even and Benji mentioning that NIL is going to be alive, but it's not going to be the same. They're going to clean that up. That's kind of like one of the big components on there. Heck, we may not see collectives, which I would hate, but at the same time, eliminates 90% of your problems. There will be a clearinghouse for all NIL deals, though, so it will have to be tied to some sort of a marketing, promotional type setup. The way that NIL was supposed to be, name, image, and likeness, using your name, image, and likeness for promotional stuff. That all will exist. Yeah. And it'll be a market value there, too, to what that looks like. Like, we don't know what Patrick Mahomes makes from State Farm, but we know that he probably gets a fat check from State Farm because, he's one of the faces. I digress. There's going to be more regulation to that. The cap when it comes to the revenue share, and then there'll be some regulation to NIL that'll help. John Russell asked a pretty good question. Question for Jay Coop. Whatever school Nico goes to, what QB leaves? This is why I said North Carolina. Their starting quarterback is Max Johnson. Y'all should know who Max Johnson, former A&M and LSU quarterback. That is correct. Yeah. That is who they have as their starting quarterback. Their backup quarterback is Ryan Brown, who was a quarterback at Purdue. So this is the splash that they need. Remember, they went after Mateer, and they supposedly threw him a bag. This is
at the last minute, yeah.
This is a perfect spot for Nico to go to. It's to go to North Carolina. And again, Chuck mentioned this too real quick, Coop. Chuck mentioned this in the comments. Belichick's used to this. He's negotiated with, he was a GM at the Patriots. Who remember, he was the president. He was a GM. He was the president, the president of operations. He had a player personnel. That's the word. That's what I was looking for. PPP. And he had a GM in between him who handled a lot of this stuff, but Bill signed off on signatures on contracts on who he wanted to get. So he's used to negotiating with quarterbacks. This is what he did for a living. Heck, he was able to negotiate with Tom Brady to get him to take less money every year to make sure he built a good roster. Him taking Nico makes the most sense. Oregon doesn't because Dante Moore. They already got him to come over from somewhere else. And this will be the first year they'll play a young quarterback. It doesn't make sense. UCLA does make sense. The question is, do they have the money to do it? Because I've always heard UCLA's broke.
Jay, before you press on through there, and I saw somebody put it in the chat here. Apparently, it was Dan Lanning who let Josh Heupel know that his people were out there spreading the feelers. And that's where I think that there's a fine line in between what's good for our program and what's going to cause our program, a hellacious amount of stress and anxiety in the long term. And that is, we could sit here and do this, and it could be big news that Nico hops into the transfer portal and is heading to Oregon. I don't know if that's going to be the situation that happens now since that got outed. And I think that, again, Dan Lanning is a guy who's willing to go win, but all these coaching staffs across the entire country, they don't want to deal with a lot of the same crap. And so just for everybody, it is already publicly out there that USC will not be a part of the situation for Nico. Now, it is Lincoln Riley, and it does sound a little bit like, no, I will not be the head coach at LSU this next year. Like, it could be a situation like that. But it's all right. So if you are USC or whatever program is out there, Jay, you go and you grab Nico, who just did this to his team, which is, I'll put Tennessee in probably going into next year, probably one of the 20-ish teams that has a good shot at it. So he just did that to that team. Why are you going to get rid of the guy that you're starting and getting prepped up for this whole entire spring? What does that say about you as a coaching staff, and what does that say about the program? And I think that's where the coaching staffs are going to pause. I really do believe that it is going to have to take a situation to where somebody gets hurt during the summer, a guy like a Garrett Nussmeier who has, a good amount of expectations going into the year. It would need something like that to where I think a team is going to take a shot at Nico, and he may have put himself in a really, really bad spot because in this year, I think a lot of people are willing to, to go after transfer portal guys, but I don't know if any team is going to sit there and say, yeah, let's go ahead and just let's shelve the guy that's been bleeding, sweating, going out here and doing all these spring practices for a guy who just bounced on his whole team.
Yeah, and you got another thing to understand too is the locker room at Tennessee was not very happy with the Nico situation based upon all the reports that's going out. The players were not happy with them.
It sounded like they encouraged booting him.
Hey.
Now, we've got Tennessee people that we can reach out to and get this if it's really something that everybody wants to hear. But I just say this was going to happen. I'm surprised it took this long for this to happen because when it became a quarterback and it became a young quarterback with everything out in front of them, that's when this thing went sideways. Is when it was a Barry Alexander, all right, you're a prize fighter, D tackle, and you're just looking for the dough. We can kind of, that just sounds like bad advice. This Nico situation just sounds like a completely bad handling of everything across the board. And you know what? To the family, to handlers, and everybody who's in that camp, listen, you have some damage control.
Yeah, and this is what you want. You want guys like this, Yes. Shout out to Mike Houck over there at OU, the communications director. This is what Mateer was doing. Mateer's running around doing a bunch of signatures. He was taking care of the people, of the fans, and he was there for a long time doing this. He stayed. He said he would have stayed here all night if he had needed to. He made sure everybody got their signatures and their pictures. Shout out to Mateer for being that type of a leader. Can't beat that, right, Coop?
And Jay, maybe I'm towing a line here by saying this, so I'm sorry. You can edit this out in post-production for the people watching live. These aren't the droids you're looking for. We saw it with Caden Green. Sometimes these situations aren't the kids. They're not the kid's choice. Everybody is making the calls and doing all the stuff, and then the kid gets lumped in.
Yep.
And I don't know where this is. All I do know is, yes, Mateer continues to look like a great move by Oklahoma. It looks like money well spent. It looks like he is the guy that you were wanting. You continue to, again, hours and hours for the quarterbacks. Jay, we don't bring quarterbacks on here because they've got a lot of responsibility being the face of the program and doing these things. And, we've had a lot of good, closeness with the O'Neills up to this point, and that's kind of the first quarterback crew that we have been super close with.
Yep.
That is the starting point of your entire team. It just is. And if you don't have a quarterback, it is hard to go out and, have lofty goals. It's not very often that you get a guy who's just out. I mean, I'll go ahead and say it. I think the last undeserving quarterback just to make himself a winner was probably Trent Dilfer, 2000 Ravens. Mm-hmm. That was a team that won in spite of the quarterback. Peyton Manning, the year that they beat, was it Carolina? Couldn't even throw the ball. That was defense and running game. You need a quarterback. And so, I would say this is we could probably stick on the Nico stuff, and there's still probably lots and lots and lots of truth to come out in this situation. But if you're a Sooner fan tonight and you're looking at John Mateer, you need to have a bigger smile on your face because we did it right. We got that one right.
Shout out to Oklahoma for making the magic happen with a guy like John Mateer and getting us a pretty good leader. So, thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, rate, review, give us 5. Yeah, the Nico situation is unfortunate. And a lot, like you said, Coop, in a lot of situations, it's not the kid. It is everyone around him. And I do believe that in this circumstance, this was really everyone around him kind of dictating what they wanted to happen. So hopefully he's just going to have to figure out what's the next move. And again, I truly believe that he's going to end up at one of the coasts. I'm thinking in North Carolina or UCLA, maybe Ohio State. I think Ohio State will be interested. I'm trying to think who was their quarterback.
Texas Tech is a big one too.
Yeah, shout out to my guy Jake Majors, aka Stats by Popo. He mentioned Texas Tech at the beginning, which made sense because you don't have they got money. And I don't think who's Tech's quarterback right now? So I know Ohio State is Julian Sane right now is who they've got, who's young. Tech has, who's that Braren Morton from last year?
I feel like that's another guy who's been around.
Baron Morton. He's been around for 4 years, and he spent the entire 4 years he had at Tech. 27 touchdowns, 8 picks last year.
But I promise you this. There's someone who is in the Tech alumni fan base who might have a few bucks to throw towards a quarterback, and I promise you, those folks down in Lubbock, they don't give two you-know-whats. If they get a chance to go after that, no, they will go after that, and it'll be zero. Listen, all the shade that came, like you did what towards Najee Kennedy? Like you gave her all that money, and you don't have a team to go around her. Well, guess what? They're selling out. A lot of people are coming to their games, and they're battling, and so I think it's going to have to be that. You're going to have somebody who is at the program like a Bill Belichick, who, if he says, hey, let's go do it, none of that fan base doesn't care. That fan base is not going to care in the least. They will go, yeah, let's go do this, whatever we need to do. Because I think once it all comes down to it, it'll be a speech every single game on the ACC network. But I promise you this, is nobody will care once December rolls around and they're fighting for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
In that fan base.
Like you said, when it comes to, Tech picking up Kennedy, they won 33 games. They've set a record. They're winning.
Yep.
I mean, what is their ranking right now? Like number 14, and they're what 33 and what 34 and 9,
I
14 and 1 in
yeah,
the
I was
Big
gonna say
12. They're winning.
it's and Bill Andrews just said it too. Patrick Mahomes, I think he's approaching 10 million in donations towards NIL, towards Texas Tech.
They got a lot
We
of
all
money
watched
people there.
we all watch Patrick Mahomes. Has anybody watched Landman? I will say this every single time that we talk about Texas Tech. Landman shows you the amount of money that happens around those areas, and those guys throw away 50-60 million dollars like it's just another business decision. And
It's
I
one of
promise
those
you
they
this.
got to spend it so that they can get it.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. So anyway, I just say this is um we were waiting on this one. We were waiting on this situation. And I think that the Oklahoma football program is better because of it. I mean, in a more fortuitous situation because of it. I don't think that there is going to be much around it. Here's what I will say: is it basically gives Garrett Nussmeier a stranglehold over I guess the projected best quarterback in the SEC. It moves Arch, it moves Mateer, up further up the shelves. You still have Pavia, who all he does is go out and just fight his ass off and win, and he's still in there too. So I mean, you're going to have a lot of guys vying to be the next, kind of name in the SEC as far as the quarterback spot. Wherever Nico does, I mean, does he land somewhere? Does he? Jay, like. And I hate bringing this name up, but I mean, we've seen quarterbacks take a stand for something and it turn out to be a bad decision for them. And I'm hoping to God that he gets his chance to go out and play. Because if he doesn't play, what would probably happen is he sits out the year and he goes to the NFL draft. And we have our first situation of a guy who set out and, was everything, because this would be his third year, so he could go into the draft after this year.
Fair point. Good question here, Sooner Cowboy. Where is Nico's brother? He's at Arkansas. Madden Iyamaliava is at Arkansas behind Taylor Green, and it looks like he's battling it out for an opportunity to be the number 2 guy. So Madden could be. I don't think Madden's going nowhere though. Sounds like he's focused on just to get better, and he's lighting it up there in Arkansas.
Fayetteville.
So he's in Fayetteville, doing what he needs to do. I don't think it's going to have anything, or it's going to affect. I don't think it's going to affect Madden at all whatsoever. So, but yeah, we'll see where Nico ends up. It'll be fun. It's going to be some fun stuff this week to hear about that or whatnot. All right, let's wrap it up. Put a bow on it. Crimson Combine, like I said, cool. There's so many things that need to be, that I think that they can grow off of with this. They can build up off this a lot. There's an opportunity to build. They just got to grab the reins and do it. Portal's going to be busy this week, folks. I expect the Sooners to see some entries. I expect more entries. I see us being active in grabbing folks. So we'll make sure to keep you all abreast at what's going down. And make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe button, join the family so you know when everything happens. So we're out. Coop, any final words for the people?
Yeah, you guys stay tuned. We did a couple of recruit interviews here at the end of the week last week, and so we'll be dropping a couple of those. I got a couple other guys lined up, but we're getting to that point to where we're going to start seeing some names drop. And maybe it was on the Sooner Scoop, one of their podcasts, but they brought it up. We haven't really had very many commitments. I think it's been over the past 10 months, we've had 4 commitments. We had the late additions of the Michael Fasusi at the end of the 25 cycle. We've got the 26, which is about to take we're about to see that tumbling, and you're going to see several of those guys starting to pull the trigger. You're seeing guys who are whittling down their final list. I'll tell you one thing is football is going to be a big deal in Oklahoma again this year, just like it is every single year. And you get a couple of early wins, and I have a feeling that like you're going to have a lot of people who are, out there. Oklahoma's getting a lot of recruits, negative recruiting, guys. A lot of negative recruiting because a lot of people are talking to these kids and saying, is the staff even going to be there next year? Is the staff going to be there, by the time that you're supposed to show up? You go out and you put a thumping, in the non-conference, and you start out your, the SEC pretty strong, and all of a sudden some of the guys that you're really battling for and they just need to see it, it's going to start happening. And you've got the big events coming up with the barbecue and everything like that. So yeah, it's going to be we'll start seeing some commitments come down here soon.
Keep your eyes open. Thank y'all for pulling up. Hit the like button. New to the channel, subscribe, rate, review, give us 5s. We'll chop it up with each and every one of you in about a week. Peace.